Hi everyone, welcome back to the Tox Lab. I'm Rebecca.
I'm Rob. This week we're going to be looking at a couple of cases where New Year's fitness goes wrong. A caffeine overdose and a fatal case of 2,4-dinitrophenol. Before we jump into that, how was your Christmas?
Yeah, it was good, thanks.
Good?
How was yours?
Yeah, not so bad. Did you eat lots of sugar?
Of course.
And have you made any New Year's resolutions?
I don't tend to make New Year's resolutions because I always break them within the first week, so I've kind of stayed clear of it. But what about you? Have you made any?
Well, why don't toxicologists make New Year's resolutions?
I don't know.
They already know how dangerous too much of a good thing can be.
It's a poor joke.
So the theme of this week is New Year, New Me. It's the time of year where everybody decides to set new fitness goals and try and be healthier. I certainly hope I can be healthier in 2025.
I think we all do.
But I think one of the things that comes along with that is the use of supplements to try and improve those goals. And so this week we're going to be looking at a couple of cases involving weight loss supplement use. The first is a compound that many of us will be familiar with, caffeine. It's found in tea, coffee, Coca-Cola, all sorts of things. Probably the most widely used psychoactive compound, I'd say.
I'd agree with you. I think it's necessary for most people to function on a day-to-day basis.
I certainly can't function without a cup of coffee in the morning, or 3.
Or 6.
Or 6 some days on a bad day. But the other situation in which caffeine is sometimes encountered is in the gym, in pre-workout formulations. So when people are training, they sometimes want to take pre-workout to give them energy to sustain their workout. So Rebecca, why don't you tell us a bit about caffeine and how it works and how this relates to performance in the gym?
So caffeine, also known as 1,3,7-trimethylxanthine, is a central nervous system stimulant. It works by basically blocking the binding of adenosine to its receptors, which therefore inhibits its effects as a central nervous system depressant, and also enhances acetylcholine release. It's basically used to promote wakefulness, improve physical performance, and enhance cognitive function. So caffeine has been shown to improve athletic performance in both aerobic and in anaerobic conditions. A dose of 5 milligrams per kilo improves sprint performance, improves performance in cycling and running time trials, improves endurance, can increase basal metabolic rate, increase muscle strength and power, and if you use it before lifting weights, it reduces your perceived exertion. So it's quite a popular supplement that people use.
And for what you've described, that sounds like win-win, right? All
Yeah.
of those improve your ability to train, lets you train harder, lift one extra rep, push yourself that little bit quicker, which is exactly what you want to be doing if you're trying to train to maximal effort.
Yeah, exactly. But it does have a little bit of a darker side.
So why don't we look at this case?
So the first paper we're going to look at today is titled Dangerous Mistake, an Accidental Caffeine Overdose, which was published in 2018. So in this case study, a 32-year-old female presented to the emergency department complaining of malaise, anxiety, dizziness and nausea. There were no real abnormalities on her initial exam. So blood pressure was all normal, heart rate was normal. The only thing, she had a slightly raised glucose. And then she experienced an episode where she felt like she was about to faint, became very agitated and started vomiting, and was pale and sweaty. And it was noted that she had tachycardia at 160 beats per minute. She also had abnormalities on her arterial blood gas, so it looked like she had a metabolic acidosis with severe hypokalemia, so low potassium. She was treated with 5 milligrams of IV propranolol, which resolved her dysrhythmia and the blood gas abnormalities. And as it turns out, she'd prepared her pre-workout supplement using the same dose that she used for her protein supplement. So instead of a dose of caffeine being 300 milligrams, she'd accidentally given herself 5,000 milligrams of caffeine.
So 5 grams of caffeine.
And a dose of 5 grams or more has been proven fatal in other cases.
So just to put it into a little bit of context, a cup of coffee might be 75, 100, maybe 150 if it's a double shot, 150 milligrams of caffeine in your latte. Compare that to the 5 grams that was consumed in this case. That would be the equivalent of quite a lot of coffee.
Mm.
So the toxic effects of caffeine can be quite varied. Anyone who's had 1 or 2 too many cups of coffee might be familiar with early signs of caffeine toxicity, so jitteriness, slightly raised heart rate, not being able to sleep at night, feeling anxious, sometimes feeling sick. Once you go to the more sort of severe end, at very high doses, you start to see things like tachycardia, seizures, actually rhabdomyolysis can occur as well, muscle breakdown. In severe cases, you can also get electrolyte disturbances as well, so hypokalemia, low potassium, and that can also contribute to dangerous heart rhythms, increased risk of cardiac arrhythmia. And deaths have occurred, haven't they? You said deaths have occurred above 5 grams or so.
Yeah.
So what happened in this case?
So this woman was really lucky. She remained on an intermediate care unit for about 2 days, and with persistent tachycardia, was given some more oral propranolol to resolve this. And she managed to walk away completely fine, was followed up, and seemed to be okay. So I think she got away quite lightly.
It's a really unfortunate dosing error, isn't it? I know that if you're using whey protein, for example, you do literally take big scoops, 20 odd grams or so at a time. So to have got the two confused and use the wrong scoop for the pre-workout is rather unfortunate.
I was quite impressed because in this paper they've got pictures of the scoops that they'd used and how she'd gotten it wrong, and she'd gotten it very, very, very wrong.
I think sometimes we take for granted as scientists, don't we, that we know, or we in our mind have good ideas about how much certain amounts weigh, or I don't know, it's just in my head I'm quite good at thinking about volumes and sizes of things. So I personally have experienced caffeine toxicity myself, not to this severity, but many, many years ago when I was a student, we discovered, I've never seen them before, and I've never seen them again, we discovered a type of caffeinated Budweiser beer.
Oh.
And long story short, I'd had a few of those over the course of an evening, and I felt genuinely rough. The worst feeling I had was this feeling of impending doom, this sense that something bad was going to happen, and I couldn't quite express why or how. It was really, really surreal, but also really unpleasant. So my advice would be, do go easy on the caffeine. So the other case we want to look at this week, it involves a chemical called 2,4-dinitrophenol, which many of you may not have heard of, unlike caffeine, which I suspect everyone will have heard of. And this compound is quite interesting. It's certainly not approved for use in human consumption and has an interesting history involved in manufacture, including explosive manufacture. So, Rebecca, why don't you take us into the case first of all, and then we can chat a bit about what it is and what it does.
So this case report covers a 21-year-old bodybuilder who presented to his GP back in February 2019 with painful gynecomastia. In June, he then presented with sweating, tachycardia, thirst, fast breathing, and then he developed some GI symptoms and irritability. Then jumping forward into August, he presented to A&E with the same sort of symptoms: dry mouth, vomiting, tachycardia of 145 beats per minute, systolic hypertension, moderate hypothermia, and on lab tests it looked like he had acute kidney failure, rhabdomyolysis, and a respiratory alkalosis. And 15 hours after his admission to hospital, he had admitted to using 2,4-dinitrophenol.
So 2,4-dinitrophenol, initially discovered in the 1930s that it could be used as a weight loss aid, and it's incredibly effective. Initial effectiveness studies, people were losing 1.5 kilos a week, which is huge amounts of weight loss. But by 1938, it had been recognised that it causes severe side effects. The way 2,4-dinitrophenol works is it uncouples oxidative phosphorylation. So normally your body is continually burning carbohydrates, fats as a source of energy, and it converts that chemical energy in food into ATP, which is used as the energy currency of the body. And it does this through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. Now, 2,4-DMP uncouples that process, and so the body continues to convert fats and sugars into breakdown products, but the energy isn't captured by the mitochondria and therefore doesn't produce ATP. As a result, this excess energy is vented in the form of heat. So essentially, what 2,4-DMP does is it makes people convert fats and carbohydrate into heat rather than effective ATP. This drastically increases somebody's basal metabolic rate. They burn calories significantly faster. However, this additional heat is dangerous. Ultimately, it causes people to develop hypothermia, get too hot, and at which point other essential bodily processes may not work as well. And that's why in this case, the individual had hypothermia, a high body temperature.
So after his discharge from hospital, he continued to experience symptoms like profuse sweating, tachycardia, irritability. He'd experienced some renal damage, and he continued to deny chronic use and only admitted that one incident where he'd taken 2,4-dinitrophenol. Jumping forward to 2020, he appeared in A&E again and admitted ingesting 2 grams of 2,4-dinitrophenol around 6 hours prior, and was experiencing fast breathing and respiratory alkalosis. About 9 hours in, he started to deteriorate, became very confused and agitated, started having some tachycardia, so high heart rate, experienced some hypertension. His temperature increased from 37 to 38 degrees and then increased further to 41 degrees despite cooling efforts. His respiratory rate then dropped and he unfortunately went into multi-organ failure and his heart stopped.
So unfortunately, there's not a lot of treatment you can provide for 2,4-DMP toxicity. All you can really do is what they did in that case, which is try and actively cool somebody. There's no antidote, there's no stopping it once the effect is started.
So at post-mortem, toxicology was taken and 2,4-dinitrophenol was found in the blood at a concentration of 88 milligrams a litre, was also detected in hair samples and was found in the urine at a concentration of 83 milligrams a litre. Interestingly, from the hair analysis, they also detected a variety of different anabolic androgenic steroids.
So the use of dinitrophenol alongside anabolic steroids is perhaps not all that surprising. As I say, this isn't a drug that's approved for use in humans. Indeed, the opposite. It certainly is not intended for human use. But it does come up from time to time, sold as weight loss pills. One other interesting finding at post-mortem in this case, there was a yellow coloration on the surface of the feet. Now, dinitrophenol is bright yellow, and yellow coloration is a common finding in cases of chronic DMP use because it's bright yellow and it gets incorporated into tissues, particularly fatty tissues. So both these cases kind of show us the potential risks that come with the use of performance-enhancing compounds, particularly as we're at this time of year where people are maybe thinking of joining a gym or going back to the gym or want to work harder at the gym. It kind of shows that clearly exercise is a good thing and we should certainly encourage that, but also that if you take an extreme approach to anything, then there are risks that come with that.
Yeah, in these cases have definitely highlighted that using sort of appearance and performance enhancing drugs shouldn't be taken lightly, and there are real significant dangers that come with their use.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen both ends of the spectrum here with these cases, haven't we? We've looked at caffeine, which, as we said at the start, is so widely available. We all take reasonable amounts of, I say we all, most of us take reasonable amounts of caffeine every day. And actually, if used correctly, caffeine is probably relatively, not completely, relatively risk-free. as a pre-workout. On the other hand, other end of the spectrum, DMP, highly dangerous, not something to really be encouraged at all. So if you are thinking of joining a gym, taking some pre-workout, do make sure you read the label and don't use your protein scoop for your pre-workout. That could be quite a significant overdose. And if you're offered weight loss pills that seem too good to be true,
please don't take them.
Yeah, do be very, very, very careful about what you take. So I think we're going to wrap this episode up here. I hope you've enjoyed listening. Do give us a like and a follow, or tell your friends about us. That would be amazing.
You can find us on Instagram at @the_tox_lab. So feel free to comment on any of the posts on any of our episodes. You can also send us a message if you've got any recommendations or things you want us to talk about on here. We hope you all had a lovely start to 2025, and we'll see you next time. Bye!